Hello and welcome to Today in Space, the All Things Space podcast. I am your host, Alex Girofanos, your space podcast host from the East Coast. We're closing out the month of February 2021, and for a short month, it has been very long. It has been filled with Mars. Every episode this month has dived into this amazing opportunity we have every 2 years or so when we're able to send missions to Mars, right? We had Hope, we had Tianwen-1, which is now making its orbital adventure closer to the planet to get ready for the drop down in May. And of course, we had the Perseverance launch, which I still can't believe it was only the week before. I guess at this point, it's almost a week and a half. But wow, I can't tell you how long ever since the moment, the day that it landed, and I would even say the Monday that the data came out from the Perseverance rover, the first dump of high quality stuff that we got, the world, it just seems like a week went by like that, like the blink of an eye. So we're here, we're catching up, we're closing out February here. If you're listening to this, it might be the last day of February. If not, it's probably just starting March. So what we wanted to do was talk about what to expect to start March of 2021, right? So Starship SN10, they did a static fire, they swapped in another Raptor engine, which apparently was a new record in them changing that out. So SpaceX getting ready for SN10. It's possible it might happen this week. It might even happen by the time you listen to this episode, so who knows? So that's very exciting. The next steps are happening for Starship. We're starting to see the first stage portion of Starship, where we're going to start seeing more developed there. So there's a lot going on in Boca Chica, Texas. We're also going to be seeing on Mars, the Ingenuity helicopter is going to come out of the belly of Perseverance and find its way on the surface, and then they're going to start flying that thing around. It was supposed to be about a month after the mission happened. So they're making sure everything's good there, and they're going to start flying that thing on Mars. The first helicopter on any other alien planet other than Earth, right? So that's pretty amazing. And I'm just, in general, just like I said, time has been flying by. It's been super busy. I'm sure it has been for you. I hope you're doing well. I'll give myself kudos this week in the podcast because I usually just talk about and make fun of myself, but I actually focused when I got busy. This is the first week in like my 31 years of life, first week that I actually focused on like myself. I was like, okay, I'm getting busy. I need to do the meditation. I got to do the workout. I got to make sure I drink some water. I got to go to bed early. Like, it's the first time I actually focused on that. So kudos to my future self. If you're listening to this, good job. So what I wanted to do is share my thoughts on the Perseverance landing so far, where we've come. I started watching that first broadcast on Monday where they really gave us a huge dump of information, high quality images, the first video of that EDL, entry, descent, and landing, that we saw with Curiosity, and then the sheer perfection of how everything worked, even just how smooth the sky crane technique was. Those boosters were locked in, they did everything they were supposed to do and more, and we got amazing pictures. Having those two satellites, the MRO and Maven, right there to gather all of that data and watch as it's happening, and to get high quality images as fast as they did is amazing. Let's see. Some of the things that I took away from this, especially from that broadcast, again, I still have to go through that. I've only really scratched the surface of it, so we'll have it in this week's podcast if you want to listen to it. But I loved the original EDL cam story. Of the whole reason why that camera even happened, that whole setup even happened, was because of one of the team members, one of the leaders, saw his daughter strap on like a GoPro and do a backflip, and that's where the idea came from. And I love that. I think there's so much that we can find that can then be molded and crafted through a scientific process to become something that's great. And it can be really simple, like watching something else happen and then connecting the dots to something else. I think that part of science is not discussed a lot, and it's almost like there's this leaning towards this perfection of science, and if it's not perfect and it's not the best idea ever, it's not a good idea. And just think about how this EDL cam origin story happened. I love that stuff. So it's definitely something to go listen to the whole story and how an idea develops like this. Their mantra too, their expectations set from the beginning. I loved this. They said, we get what we get for content. That's it. If we're going to put cameras on here, that's great. If we're going to put a microphone, that's great. But are we going to compromise the success of the mission or the science that we're sending this thing, this, expensive rover that we're sending on another planet? Are we going to compromise our mission or our design or anything like that, and then beat ourselves up about it or ruin things because we're worried we may not get pictures or we may not get video or whatever? So I think that's great, and just being like, hey, if we get the content, if we get the videos, that's a huge win for us, instead of, oh, the video wasn't 1080p. So what? It doesn't matter. And that's what I loved about the right expectations they had on this. From the moment that they landed, over the weekend they processed the information. 30 gigabytes of information traveling from Mars to Earth, which takes 10 to 11 minutes just to send the data beam in the first place, the first piece of data that gets sent, right? 11 minutes. They spent all weekend, 30 gigabytes and 20,000 images of data. Wild to see how that, and that definitely gave more credence to why it took so long. It took so long for them to get this high quality information, right? The missions in the past, we've gotten stuff quick, like that first cam on the surface where they took the first picture after it got dropped down during the live stream of that. That was a super low, that was a thumbnail. That was a really low quality image. And so if we're going to get these high quality, that video that came back, that's possible because we spent more time sending more information, higher quality, more information. So that is a problem that we have right now in space. That is a fundamental thing, and we saw that with the release, waiting till Monday. But again, I said it online on Twitter, but I'll say it here again. Like, I would rather them take the time to figure out the right thing to say and extract more knowledge for us, to teach us more things. If it takes 2 days as opposed to instantly, I'm about that. That's good. So I have to roll back my expectations as well, because having it instantly is just so much better. But a few more other things. Just a kudos to NASA in general. I think what they've done with Perseverance as far as a presentation, I loved the graphics that they're doing. I'm seeing a lot of old vintage NASA graphics and images, even like the stylization that they're doing. They're really pulling on the retro style, and I love it. There were some pictures of the spacecraft with all the pieces exploded out so that you could see all the various aspects. They could tell you about it. And then on the bottom, they had like just a simple, it wasn't complicated, it was very simple. They had on the bottom of the image as it was coming in, they had the different steps of what the spacecraft was going through. Entering with the heat shield, having the parachute, deploying the heat shield, releasing the spacecraft, sky crane, landing. Like, they had an image of that, and they would only show the next image when it was on it. So that was great. I thought that kind of stuff we need more of. We need to tie in all these other ways to teach people for all their different ways, and just to make it more immersive and to understand the complexity of everything that's going on. The thing that blew my mind was the parachute. That was the first thing that blew my mind. It's a hypersonic parachute, 150 pounds of the parachute. It was released via a mortar out the back of the spacecraft as it's coming in, and the vehicle was going 1,000 miles per hour. It shoots it back, 150 pounds of parachute. It opens up in 0.7 of a second, and it did it like flawlessly. It was great. And one of the things that didn't come through in the simulation that I thought was really interesting was the video of the EDL on Mars, and seeing just how long the heat shield actually fell for. It gave me I understood the grasp of just how high the spacecraft was on re-entry. You just kept watching it go and drop, and I don't even think you ever actually saw it drop in the EDL video. So that's amazing. So our Mars takeaway, to encapsulate this whole month, it's been amazing. What have we taken away? Mars is difficult. Even though we had 3 for 3 this time, and I think that's incredible and amazing. 2 of them, the UAE Hope mission and NASA's mission, both were backed by NASA in some form or fashion to understand how to get there. So there was some experience behind there of we've done this before. That still doesn't mean it's going to happen every single time. And up until that rover landed, it was still possible that the whole month could have been spent talking about Perseverance, and it failed. It's happened before. It's happened before on Mars, so we can't underestimate how difficult it is. People care about this. It's very popular right now. This mission to Mars, everything has stirred up conversation. People were sharing it online. Space Twitter was blowing up. But we're still, it is part of the balance, right? The balance for the science industry and science as a community, especially the space industry, is that there's still a gap between the release of the information and that being fast enough to prevent faux science or attention grabbers to create incorrect information from getting out there, right? There was plenty of conversation. A lot of people have reached out to me talking about the different things that were released that people got basically hosed on. Like there was that 3D image of Mars with the giant starscape on top where they put the Milky Way galaxy on top. That was a fake image. That was not real, and they were not communicating that to you. You just, if you're looking at that, how it came across is this is literally from the rover on Mars, and that wasn't true. There was even the audio recording on the surface of Mars. The first one that got released was actually using an image of Curiosity rover and then overlaying an audio. And this is where I think we can get better with this Perseverance launch, just talking about science communication and how we can improve on these things. Again, I think NASA did a great job when the information came out. But in that time in between, I think there's so much that we can do to let people know who are the people they can talk to about this, right? To answer the questions, was this real? Is this, and sharing like more about when this information is coming out. I'm tied into the algorithm on the space stuff, so I have alerts on my computer. I'm getting tagged in when this stuff is happening, but no one else is doing that. And unless you're doing that, you're gonna miss when this stuff comes out. I think one of the things that can help that, again, just throwing it out there, it's just an idea, take it how it is, but I think having, for when there's a mission like this, I think allowing the mission team to talk about it online in the gap between is actually a good strategy during those 2 days, because otherwise you just have some other person who doesn't know what they're talking about, or is just doing this for attention and misleading people. And first impressions are everything, right? Whether it's your first impression on something you scroll by, an article that you read, how you read another person, first impressions are everything. And so if we can get people out there so that this kind of stuff, there's a face to go to, there's a person to ask, I think that's great. And letting the news, the people that are going to share that stuff and make it go viral, they know they should be looking at this person first. And if you're not in the conversation, then the conversation goes somewhere else. So I think it's something in general. I think just it's not going to be one person that does this. It's not going to be one company that does this. Not one organization like NASA. It's going to be the scientific community that does this better. So that's why we're here. And there are always ways to improve. So that's our thought. Final takeaway from Mars. I still think it was great. I still think that there was a huge wave of interest in people that came on board, and it was great. It was great. And to close out, this is Black History Month, and we wanted to focus about Black history in NASA. And I originally was going to come on, and I thought I was going to do it like every week. But honestly, I realized very quickly that I didn't want to just come on here and just like reread information or history without or things about people without really understanding it. And I actually learned a lot during this about Black history within NASA and how just the American experience of all humanity here in the U.S. focused on the space industry. You know, I'm aware of the gravity of the race and culture during the space race history. I've done enough research that I've started to tie the gaps. You know, there's von Braun, who literally, I mean, I guess it's alleged, but literally couldn't be closer to being a Nazi, is the main technological expert that got us to the moon. The Saturn V, that rocket is literally the reason we got to the moon. So that is a complicated thing. So already NASA has a complicated history to start, right? And this is where I'm going with this. The pilot culture in general. Astronauts were fighter pilots, test pilots, these really just adrenaline junkies, you know, on the edge of their seats. And there was a lot of racism and just white male dominance in the culture. That was most of them were. And then there are people like Ed Dwight and Ed White, a white man and a black man, both in the astronaut program, and their story is really interesting. And although it was complex, and although it started with all these things that were not good, I think NASA shows an example, thank goodness for an American institution, that has changed over time and has gotten stronger with their diversity and at the highest level, right? All the people that are working at NASA, regardless of where they come from, what their genetic background is, whatever it is, they're some of the smartest human beings on the planet. And the whole thing with Ed Dwight and Ed White, there was like this connection that happened. If you've seen the movie Hidden Figures, they're inside of NASA. People turned around to say, this isn't right, we need to do better, and they changed it from within, right? I think that's one of the great things, and it was not great. It took a really long time, but they managed, and watching that history and realizing that they all had a mission of getting these other human beings to the moon. They had a bigger purpose to come together behind that I think we don't have as much during the day in our day-to-day Earth in 2021, right? There was this huge thing about going to space. It was a survival. There was a kinship that came from doing the science to achieve something great, right? And then they were able to see each other as human beings over time. They did not get it right. It took them a very long time to figure it out, but they did. And then one of the things, piece of Black history within NASA that I learned this month was with Nichelle Nichols and her whole role after the space race, right? The Apollo era, enter Nichelle Nichols. And she goes from being a hugely popular cultural icon on a sci-fi program, obviously Star Trek, one of the biggest of all time, during the space shuttle era, and brings in insane amounts of talent from all kinds of backgrounds, women, gay, black. There's so many people that were just talented people that were brought into NASA to make NASA better because their backgrounds made them incredible people, incredible scientists. They could do different. That is a huge piece of it that I'm going to jump into here, and I'm going to be watching the Woman in Motion documentary. It's available online a bunch of different places. I'll try and put a link in this week's episode if you want to check up on it. But the reason that it went from what it was, the Apollo era, with how much divide it was, to think that Nichelle Nichols brought in all those people that changed NASA within the inside. That is why we have a NASA that we have today, where we again, another part of Black history within NASA in America is the duo of President Obama and NASA Administrator Charles Bolden, who was a space shuttle astronaut, having them set the grounds for what we have today, which is the Commercial Crew Program, where now our rate of space travel has increased, right? We've gotten our own rocket, our own American-made rocket, American-made spacecraft, and our own ability to send our own astronauts into space again. All of that was because of President Obama and NASA Administrator Charles Bolden. And so all of these major turning points, without Black Americans in this, we would not have NASA. This would not exist today. So I think it's an incredible history to dive into, and I'm going to provide as many links as I can this week. But my takeaway from this 2021 Black History Month is that even though I do know some of it, there's so much more to learn, and I can learn more about not only Black history but our collective humanity, right? All of our history, how we're all part of this giant, this small planet in an infinite universe, and it's not just about that, but there's so much more you can learn. So even though you may know some things, there's always something else that you can dive into more and understand further than just memorizing a bunch of names and maybe what they did. We're going to keep building on it. Next year we'll do even more, and every year we'll add more to that and learn more and more. That is what this show is about. That is what we hope Black History Month is in February, but that's not the only time you should be learning about Black history. Remember that. And that's it. Keep up all the good work, people. This was a quick episode coming at you at the end of March, at the end of February, going into March, and that's it. We actually read a little bit of The Case for Mars. Again, I am a really bad reader. It takes me a really long time. I listen to books a lot faster, but just going through The Case for Mars already has gotten my brain jumping all over the place. A lot of the ideas that I have stemmed from this old book. A lot of these ideas that I've kind of learned over the time and gotten bits and pieces of people over time, I'm realizing this is the crux of where all of how we can go to Mars, that we can go now, that we don't have to wait and have this big program. Robert Zubrin was talking about that years ago, so it's cool to know where that idea kind of stemmed from, where it could be built off of. And then we've got Avi Loeb's Extraterrestrial, The First Sign of Intelligent Life Beyond Earth, which we're reading and listening to right now, and we're going to be talking more about it this month. But that's it, folks. Thank you for joining us. Spread love and spread science. We hope you stay well. See you next time for another episode of Today in Space.